Well, welcome everyone. This is really a global event for Lumio Palooza, where we're providing fun and fresh PD opportunities. And we're going to highlight how Lumio can provide a fluid workflow that benefits teachers and students. We will show you how to create lessons and activities focused on a variety of topics. Today is really about that science and PhET stuff, though. It's great instructional strategies already built in. My name is Chani Barton. I'm a professional development specialist in Pennsylvania. This webinar, Skating Through Science, Constructing Explanations with Lumio and PhET Science Simulations, is presented by Chani Barton. She's a technology program specialist with the School District of Philadelphia. We do encourage participation, so please put whatever questions you have in the chat, and Paris will love to answer them. And if it's something that we need to bubble up during the session, we will. But make sure you're talking, you're telling us what you like, what new things you've seen. That would be awesome in the chat. And we will share resources in the chat, so keep an eye on those also. We will give you a survey with a certificate in it just at the end, and a couple other things. And remember, all of these are being recorded, so therefore you will get an email sometime next week with the recordings of each of your sessions. If there are other sessions you wanted to see and did not see, they will all be in the Academy, and I'll talk about that at the end, but you can always go back and get credit for those also. We would love for you to share what you've learned with this session in social media. So in the chat, you will find all that information, but tag us with @social, at Lumio Social, or hashtag #Lumio Challenge or Lumio Palooza, and you might enter and win a gift card. There's a graphic there if you need one too. And at this point, I am going to turn things over to Chani so that we can dive right into Skating Through Science.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm so excited to be here with Terry to talk to you today about PhET simulations and the connection that they have with Lumio. Terry was a math teacher when she was in the classroom, and I was a science teacher when I was in the classroom. And the great thing about this tool is that it has resources for both. And the resources that we have, as you guys will see today, are going to go multi-grade level, cross-curricular, all sorts of things like that. So really excited for you guys to be joining us today. So what we're going to do today is we're going to walk you through basically a science lesson so you can see how we can use different resources and tools within Lumio and within PhET to teach a science lesson. But keep in mind that there are also tons of math options as well at the PhET website. And we're going to look at that in a little while. Okay, so if you, Terry, we need to have folks join my class. So if you guys have not done so already, can you put my code into the chat?
Yes, we will. There we go. Paris got it. She's on the ball. You can go to hellosmart.com and type in her code, 559246. The other thing I'm going to point out, just so that everybody sees it, Chani, if you will open that classroom management tab again.
Yes.
And then there's a little toggle right there that says show class ID. This for me is a game changer, because now your code will always stay at the bottom if you want it to. I don't know how many of the rest of you this happens to, but it happened to me a lot. Kids come in class late and what's that code again? I can leave it down at the bottom of the screen and I don't have to come back if you want to leave it toggled on. So Chani, you can leave it on the whole time if you want to. It's just that little small piece in the bottom, but it works well.
That's a great addition. So, and I can also see by looking on the screen how many of my folks have joined. So once we get, looks like we have a fair number of participants right now. So once we get a few more in here, we will get started. So I'll give you guys just a few more moments.
All right, guys, we got 37 people. We should see some more numbers in that chat.
This is an interactive session, so even though it's being recorded, there will be lots of opportunities for you to engage with the different activities that I'm going to be showing you today, so you can experience them as a student. So while we're working, you know, there's going to be times where you're going to be thinking about things as if you were a student, and times where I want you to be thinking about things as if you were a teacher. Okay, so always kind of keep in the back of your mind how can I turn this around? How could I do something similar? How does this align with what I'm already doing? What would I change if I was going to do this with my students? And then also thinking about as a student, what did this experience look like? What did it feel like? How easy was it? How interactive was it? How engaging was it? Okay.
Awesome. And if you're having trouble getting in, please let us know in the chat, and Paris and I will help you get in. But Chani, if you want to take it away, let's dive right in.
Absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to close this window and we're going to go on to our next slide. So we're doing today is we're talking about this objective. Okay, Pennsylvania State Standard, as Terry mentioned, I work for the School District of Philadelphia. This is one of our standards, differentiate between potential and kinetic energy. And having taught in other states, this is a pretty common standard throughout the United States, where that students need to learn when they're in their science classes. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of brainstorming. Okay, so this is a whole class whiteboard. And what that means is that everybody that's currently in my class can engage with this whiteboard. So on your computers in your Hello Smart tab, I want you to go ahead and click Start. And I want you to play with the tools that are showing on the left. And I want you to add content to answer this question. What do we know about energy? Okay, so think about our standard. We're going to be exploring potential and kinetic energy. And I want you to fill out our mind map here, our brainstorming guide with some ideas. Make sure you use the different tools. I see some folks already have found the image. We've got some text coming in. Okay, so if we think while you guys are working, if we think about our learners, right, this is a very accessible activity because we may have learners that want to give us text and want to give us full sentences. We may have learners that want to give us images because that's what's going to work best for them. And this is a great way to do that. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys just a few more moments because I see some things popping in here. Some formulas, right? Calories are a unit of measurement. We have a very extensive breadth of knowledge when it comes to talking about energy. This is great. Before I move off of this whole class whiteboard, one other thing that I want to point out is that I can actually right here turn off your ability to do anything with this. Okay, so if you're sitting at home, you're like, oh, wait, I wasn't done because I can see there's some stuff that still need to be moved around. If I need to pause and address my class or redirect students or something along that lines, I can do that very quickly just by clicking my everyone can edit. And then once we have things squared away, maybe I need to tweak their thinking a little bit or refocus them. I can then turn it back on and you guys now have access to editing once again. So I wanted to make sure that I pointed that out to you guys before we moved along. Okay, so we're going to move on. And what you're going to notice is that as I change my screen, your screen is also going to be changing in your Hello Smart tab. Okay, so this one is a Freyer model, okay, for potential energy. Now, the brainstorming activity, when I created this file, I went ahead and made it a whole class whiteboard. But I can do that right in the middle of my lesson as well. Okay, so maybe I didn't plan for this, or when I was creating my lesson, I had a different idea, but once I'm in front of my students, the flow is changing and I really want to put this in their hands. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this right now in the moment. I'm going to click on the two heads. What's the formal word for this, Terry?
A classroom management.
Classroom management, thank you. So I'm going to click on my classroom management button and I'm going to come over here and click whole class whiteboard. Okay, so what you guys will notice is now you have the option of interacting with this slide. So if you will please just take a few seconds to give me some information here. Talk to me about what you know about potential energy. So I could do this as a teacher-led activity where I'm kind of cold calling the class and I'm writing the information on here. I can put it out to my students to fill this in. I can make this an individual handout where they're going to do it independently. Or I can make it a group workspace where they're actually going to work in groups to fill out this information. So give me a little bit of give me a little bit of information here and then we're going to continue. Okay, and if you have not already done so, make sure that you interact with the different tools that you have on the left side to be
I
able
think
to
that's
add
what makes it
content to
such a
this screen.
powerful tool, because you have kids that want to type, you have kids that want to do pictures. Coming soon will be audio for students. So
Oh,
there'll
okay.
be tools for everything.
That's exciting.
It is exciting. I love when I see new tools.
Excellent. All right, that's beautiful. Thank you very much. So we've got some facts, we've got a definition, we have some examples, and we have some non-examples, right? Your standard, straightforward FAIR model. I do want to point out this is actually a ready-made thing that exists in the Lumio library. So I didn't have to do anything in creating this other than maybe change the vocabulary word in the middle. Okay, so super fast, super efficient way to add interactive pieces into the lessons that I'm doing.
I
All right.
also find that's a great model, Shawnee, because it lets kids enter where they feel comfortable. Like if they're only non-examples versus examples, that might be where they're comfortable, and it might be harder to do definitions, but you can start in any one of these boxes and it really helps them build their knowledge.
That's a great point. And for some science concepts, really the key here is the example and the non-example, right? It's knowing what is this thing, what is an example of potential energy, and what is not, right? And that's really kind of the place that's really important for the kids to see. So as a teacher, I know as my students are filling this out, where they are with their learning of this concept. All right, I'm going to change your screens again. Okay, and because we're learning about potential and kinetic energy, I wouldn't be doing it justice if I only showed you one. So if I was teaching this as an actual lesson, we would be engaging with both of these. In the interest of our time today, we're only going to engage with that first one, but just so you see, there is kinetic energy. I did cover my science bases here. All right, and then we have our PhET simulation. All right, and so what I want you to do is I want you to click the start button, and I want you to take a moment just to explore this simulation.
This is a cool one. And that activity that she just gave you, exploring it, that's really important, because the kids then will have more ownership to be able to tell you what they found.
Absolutely, and to be honest, they're probably going to do it anyway. And as Terry and I know, because we've worked with some of the folks at PhET, they really encourage that playtime. They really want the kids to get in there and explore and play so that they really have a good understanding of the tool that they're using.
And Danielle, at this point in time, you cannot see what the kids are doing when they're exploring, but that is a really good Explorer feature. So when we get into building, we will show you where you can vote for different things for the features, because it really helps the engineers decide where they're going to go.
All right. So I'm going to have you guys come back. Hopefully you've had just a brief moment to kind of dig in. You can see there's a lot going on. My science teachers, if you're here and you're a science teacher, hopefully your brain is already popping with ways that this tool could be used in your class. Okay, the great thing about the PhET simulations is that it's the teacher that sets the expectation for the learning through the questioning that they do, through the tasks that they ask the students to perform, right? This one simulation can do multiple grade levels, from I've used this with middle schoolers all the way up in high school, right? Because you can turn on and off different pieces. Okay, so it's really how you focus things as the teacher that gets the students to learn what you need them to learn from this simulation. But this one simulation can be used all kinds of ways. All right, so I wanted to take a moment to kind of hop out. I'm going to come over here. If you will come back to my screen or your Zoom window. And I want to show you PhET's website. Now, PhET does require for teachers to register. It's free. There's nothing that they're going to spam you with or anything like that. They're not tracking any data because there's no data you're going to put in here. Students cannot sign up for an account. So keep that in mind as well. They're very specific about how they want this tool utilized. Okay, and you'll notice if you're not familiar with PhET, it is a tool that's developed by the University of Colorado. Okay, so what I wanted to point out in this screen, I signed in and I went to simulations. First, I want you to see all the different kinds of simulations that exist. Okay, also I want to highlight translated sims. If you're a teacher that who's not in the United States, or if you're a teacher who has students from lots of different countries, here they've worked really hard to work in options for translating. Okay, so here's all sims, and the other thing that I want to speak to while we're here on this page is these little icons right here. These are the different accessibility features that are contained within each of the simulations. So as you're going through and you're exploring and you're saying, okay, I want to give this to my students so they can learn about Kepler's laws, but what kind of accommodations or what kind of accessibility features exist? Okay, and that little 5 just means it's coded correctly for modern web browsers. Okay, so for those of you that were in the world, teaching, but when Adobe, can't think of their name right now, when the Adobe one was there and then it went away, and then all of a sudden a lot of simulations and things didn't work.
Oh,
So
yes.
yeah, I can't think of what it is.
Like Flash and
Flash Player,
yeah.
that's what it is.
Yes.
Flash Player, right? So when Flash Player went away, I know a lot of the science tools I used didn't work anymore. But at PhET, they made sure they went through and coded their stuff so that it would work correctly. All right, so that's definitely one of the pieces I want to point out is the accessibility that is available for each of these sims.
Oh, there's also translation in a lot of the newer ones that it'll translate it right in the app, and we'll look at them as we kind of go along. I do want to point out that without an account, you can get to a lot of stuff, but with a free account, and it's free for PhET, and only teachers need one, it gives you a whole bunch of resources, which are really cool. And I think Chani's going to get into that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm actually going to click on one of the top sims that were just on the list there, and I want to show you the teaching resources, okay? So the great thing about this is that there are some tips for you as a teacher when you first go into these resources, and then there are other related sims. The other thing that you can get to is activities, okay? And the activities are very, very helpful because this for me would be an idea generator. So I want to see how other teachers are using this sim. So I can come here and I can see who the author was, and I can click and I can get to whatever activities somebody has already created that support this sim. And then I can look at that, and that can help guide me with how I want to set up my activity. Okay, I also want to kind of point out our translations piece, just so you can see the different languages that are available. Okay, so these kinds of things are accessible when you register for that account. But remember, it's free. They don't, they're not going to spam you. They're not selling your information. They're not doing any of that sort of thing.
And that's a great question from Miranda. Miranda's asking about the age levels for PhET. There's all sorts of age levels, and you can even search by grade level.
Yeah, so I'm going to come back to all sims, and over here on the side, this is where you can search for any sorts of needs that you have. Okay, but keeping that in mind, obviously some of them are very high level, but some of them are very useful multi-level. So just depending on what tools you turn on or turn off within the sim.
Or what question you ask, because I could use the skateboarder question with a kindergarten class if I ask this what do you think is going to happen with the skateboarder up top when I hit start? Just to try to get them to make those hypotheses.
Exactly. Perfect example. All right, so I just clicked elementary school, and you'll notice that everything changed over here. So maybe I'm an elementary teacher. These are some ones that would work for me. I can also do high school if I want. That changed what's going to show up. Although greenhouse effect, you'll notice, is in both places. All right, so and it goes all the way up to university level. Okay, so we're going to come back into our Lumio file. So if you want to go back to your Hello Smart tab, so for this experience, you'll notice that in our lesson, the first thing that I did was I pulled in the PhET resource just so you could click start and play. The next thing that you guys are going to do is you're going to work in groups. And is group still a viable option, Terry?
Yep, go for it.
All
We're
right,
almost
awesome.
at the top, but we're good. Keep going.
I'm going to put you into groups. And when you're in groups, what's going to happen is you're going to click on this link. Okay. And the reason I have you doing this is because this is going to open another tab for you. Here we have our student hat on. So we're going to open another tab for you so you can interact with the sim, but then come back to your Hello Smart tab when you need to answer questions. Okay. So we're going to change this to a group workspace. And I'm going to put you into groups. And it's just going to magically drop you where you're going to go. Okay. And then I'm going to start the workspace. Okay, so you guys then will be able to work. And I always like to warn people, as the teacher, I can click on any one of your files and see what work you're getting done. So I have the ability to click in. I'm going to give you guys a few moments to get something written there. And then I'm going to show some groups work.
And I also do want to point out, I don't know if we're ready to point that out yet, that link just went right into one specific part of the PhET activity. It didn't show you all three. So Chani's going to show you some of the magic behind that as we build, because you can link them just to the part of the PhET activity that you want. Don't worry, I will make her do the build at the end. There's lots of questions and how'd she get that? How'd she do that? And I will make her make sure she does the build because that's the magic behind it all.
All right, yeah, we'll make sure we take time.
And I apologize to my group because I am not answering the question. I will go over there and do that now. And then, so how do we add something? It's easiest just to pick up the text tool, which is the A tool on the left side. So if you click once on that A tool on the left side, it'll turn blue. And then click anywhere in your slide and you'll get a text box to be able to type. You can write, but I don't know about you all, but I'm writing with a trackpad and it's really ugly. So it's easier just to type.
There you go. And I'm kind of modeling for you guys if you're looking at your Zoom window.
And the person that just entered, if you see her screen, you can see the code right at the bottom of her screen. That 559246.
Terry, I'm a huge fan of that.
I am too.
Love it. All right, so I'm in team 1 and I can go through and I can look and see. I can do this during class. I can do it on my computer while the students are working. I can do this later after class is over. I can come back to this and I can see how my students did. I have a lot of different ways that I can get to this information. Okay, I can also click and I can see who added what. Now it looks a little different for us because you guys are here as participants, but if this was my class with my students, then I would see their name there. Okay, so I can also see who participated and who engaged with the learning. So that's a pretty important key piece. That's one of the questions I get a lot from the teachers that I work with. How do I know that my students are engaging? How do I know that it wasn't just one student that answered everything? You can click and you can see that. All right, so I'm looking at team 1. Team 2, I'm coming your way. There's a couple of different ways I can get there. I can click this arrow over here and I can come, that brings me back to my main screen and I can see how Allison and Kelly are doing. Okay, I can also click through with my arrows in the top right corner just to move between my groups. Okay, I love this. Thank you, Ed Tech Coach, for joining us and for your honesty. I appreciate it. All right. Friction eventually brings the scare to a stop. It's wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to change screens on you guys again. And I just want to point this out because we are actually working through a science lesson. So if I was going to do this with students, there's that first page where they're doing questions and answering questions. There's a second page of questions that I want them to answer. Okay, some of my group members may not have been done with that first page. So I can change my pacing. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to click student. And what that does is that gives you guys, so you'll notice down here in the bottom left of your screen, you now have arrows where you can move through the slides. So if you were if you weren't done, or if you were still working, I could put it on student pacing and give you the flexibility to work between both these slides if I wanted to. This one, you're not going to be able to do anything with because I have not done anything to make it interactive. All right, so just keep that in mind. But I did want you to see an example of some other questions.
I think especially with these PhET activities, that student pacing is awesome because kids can go at their own pace. And some of the beautiful parts that are built into Lumio is, one, you could use immersive reader. So even though Chani didn't do anything on that page that says click on the pie chart, you do have the immersive reader tool to the left, which can A, read it aloud to you, or B, translate it to another language for the student if they need it. And the students are in control. So it really makes that a student-led lesson because they're going at their own pace, at their own rate, what they need to go at.
Excellent. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. All right. So we're going to move on along here to our next slide. Thinking about our lesson. So this slide is an example of a graphic organizer that's provided in our district by our science curriculum department. Okay, so I could have used that PhET simulation and put in this graphic organizer, and I could have assigned for my students to do this work where they're going to talk about cause and effect and the mechanism. So thinking about potential energy, kinetic energy, and friction, and how these three concepts interact with each other, right? What is the cause? What is the effect? What is the mechanism? So I could have put this in instead of those questions. I could have put it in as in addition to those questions. I just want to point this out because this is a curriculum provided tool. It's given out as a PDF that I was able to very quickly and easily pull into my lesson. Okay, so just want to point that out for you guys. Okay, the next one is one of the Lumio ready-made graphic organizers.
I'm going to go back for a minute, Chani, just because the question just came in from Peter and it was a good question. So some slides will be like that one. You can tell immersive reader's not on because we just entered it as a flat file. So when Chani goes to build, she'll show you can import just flat. Perfect. It comes in like it looks. Or there's ones that are editable. Those are the ones that'll be immersive reader. But sometimes the writing might be just a little bit off and you have to move stuff. So it just depends on the person who's creating it. And I will tell you, there'll be times where I will want it to come in flat, especially with math and science, if there's equations in it, because the readers don't know what to do with the equations, superscript, subscript, it kind of throws it off a little bit. So then I do want it as a flat file. But you're right, it's not showing there because we just brought it in as a flat file. So that was a great point out. Now, I wish I could give you points, Peter, to get a gift card because that was awesome to show or talk about.
Awesome. Thank you, Peter. Yeah, absolutely. This was a PDF and I just pulled it straight in. All right, so this one is an example of one of the ready-made graphic organizers that exists in the Lumio library. Okay, so you'll notice kind of the difference between the two, right? This was provided by curriculum folks. This one's a little fancier, a lot more color to it. This one would be one that I would use if I wanted my students to just use that sim and practice with planning and carrying out an investigation. So I just want them to create a hypothesis, figure out their variables, work on write out their lab setup, talk to me about constants. What is your data? Okay, give me a research question. So we're still using that same PhET sim. Okay, but notice the difference in the purpose of our activity, right? With this one, remember we were talking about the cause and effect and the relationship between potential energy, kinetic energy, and friction. And with this one, we are practicing with researching and planning and carrying out investigations, scientific method. Okay, so both graphic organizers work perfectly well and both align very well with the activity that the simulation that we have in PhET.
And I see, Chani, that first one that you had is very much maybe a younger level one where you're just trying to get them to start. And this is probably a higher end one because now we're talking about a research question and trying to get them in that almost STEM space. So same activity, different graphic organizer bumps whatever you're talking about up.
It does, and it also kind of explores where you are in your learning of the concept. But I will say, like I mean, this is definitely, I use this with sixth graders, fifth graders. We had to know and be able to work through this. So yeah, it was just the introductory part of it, but absolutely. And then as they get older, this can work into lab reports, right? And really then clarifying what they experienced in their lab. All righty, so we're going to, you guys are going to experience a gamification piece. Okay, so there are a lot of different gamification tools within Lumio, and this is one example. And I'm just going to quickly model for you what this one is. Okay, earlier we were talking about the importance of being able to differentiate what is potential energy and what is kinetic energy. Okay, so in this example, what my participants are going to do, what you guys are going to do here in a minute, is you're going to have to click and drag the concept wherever it belongs. Okay, so I want you guys to go ahead. If you have not done so already, I'm going to come back to me, go back.
You okay?
I'm getting, there we go, down. There we are. Okay, so I want you guys, if you haven't already, go ahead and click start and take a moment to participate with this.
Yes, definitely stretch rubber band, elastic. They're giving the answers away. No, I'm just kidding. I need somebody to give me all the answers away. And I do want to point out you had some great questions in here. I'll have to play with the Jamboard. Jamboard is going away. That had nothing to do with us. That's a Google thing. They're retiring it. So they'll be making them all into PDFs. I just have never brought a PDF into Lumio to see if it's movable once it's in there. But there are some Jamboard-like examples in the Lumio library that have the sticky notes that you can use also that we'll try to point out when we're in there. But great, go play the game. Make sure Chani gets some data. And trust me, I'll be the lowest one in there because remember, she said I was a math teacher.
All right, take a few more moments. And I'm going to open my dashboard while you guys are working. So I can see from my dashboard, I can see how my students are doing. So I have 24 that have completed it, 25, I have 4 in progress. I have a couple that haven't started, and that's my class overview here in the data. Okay, I can also turn on show results, and I can see how things have done, how we've done on this, right? I can get an average time on the activity. Okay, and then 5 most frequent answers. I've got some good data that's showing up over here. Okay. And I can see which ones most students got correct and which questions most students got incorrect. Okay, so a stretched rubber band was interesting. The keyword there is stretched. Okay, so I'm just gonna throw that out there. All right, and then student progress. Okay, so I'm going to show student progress, and it gives me a warning. It says, hey, I understand that students' names are going to be here. We're in a safe space here, so I'm going to show this, but just know that this may not be the screen you would want to show on where all of the students can see, because there are scores that are going to be shown there. Okay, so I can see how we did.
And I was going to say, I think I'm in a seesaw. If you want to show somebody's data, I won't care.
There we go. So here I can see the item, if they got it right or wrong, and I can see their score, how many they got correct on the first attempt. Pretty powerful data that I'm getting from this gamification activity.
Yeah, a lot of teachers like to start with the gamification that just duplicate the slide. They start it in the beginning of the class and then at the end of the class and see where the kids have learned from where they've gotten to. The data will save in here as long as Chani doesn't reset it. So there's a gear on the left side that will reset it. But if she comes in tomorrow and looks at the data, it'll all still be here as long as she does not reset it. So it stays within inside of the file for her. There's 3 games right now that currently have data: match them up, rank order, and super sort. They are adding some more They're adding 3 more. I don't remember the exact timeline. Paris might, but they are definitely adding more. At this point in time that you can't print the data, but they will, they're working on, I don't remember if that's one they're working on. I think it is, but when we get to the part where it says request a feature, go vote for the things you want, because the more votes, that's what they work on. So they just need to hear from teachers as to what they want.
Excellent. And so, right. And so right here, I can see, you know, my class, the class average for this activity was pretty good. You guys did a great job. Great job. Even though not all of us are science teachers. All right. Okay. So then we're going to go on to the next piece. So we've learned a lot about potential kinetic energy, right? We started out with a brainstorm. We did the PhET. We explored some questions. We played around with our simulation. We did some graphic organizers. And then we did that gamification piece just to really apply our understanding of what is potential energy and what is kinetic energy. Okay, so we're going to do a shout it out now. So I'm going to go ahead and click start for class. And you guys are going to give me a definition in your own words. Okay, so on your screens, your screen's going to look different than mine, your Hello Smart tab. And what I'd like you to do is just very quickly experience what this is as a student, as a shout it out. All right, so in the interest of time, I just want to move you guys along. Thank you for your participation and your engagement with this. Notice that I can click and make each one large. I can see the first 3 letters of the name of the person who gave me the information, and it's going to click through and I can see all the things. The other thing that I can do is I can click and maybe I can see a common understanding or a common misunderstanding, and I can click and I can drag these things and move them to another section if it's a talking piece that I want to make sure that I address. So that's another important piece there. Okay.
So this is called a, sorry, shout it out. I wanted to make sure we got it. Somebody asked, what is that board called? A shout it out. You can start them on the fly or you can create them ahead of time to do different things, especially if you're secondary and the kids can type words. It's a great way for brainstorming or just to see what they understood. Or you can do a quick KWL, start the class with it, and then end the class with it. So there's lots of ideas built in with this.
Absolutely. Okay, so thinking about engagement pieces that you guys have experienced so far, you experienced a group workspace where it put you into groups where you had to work together collaboratively to answer some questions. You had a whole class whiteboard where everybody was interacting kind of in the same space. That is one that I would say is closest to a Jamboard, if that's what you're familiar with. The next one that we're going to do is we're going to do an individual handout, just because I want you guys to see. This is another way I could do a exit ticket, a formative assessment, some sort of thing so that I can kind of track where my students are with this lesson. So I'm going to turn this one into an individual handout. And then on your end, in your Hello Smart window, I want you to just click Start. And once you've clicked Start, come back to your Zoom window so that you can see my screen. So this is the same thing as me walking to the copier and making a copy of papers for my students, right? And we all know there's days the copier is broken, the line's too long, you're out of time, whatever's going on, or we don't have access to a copier. This is a great alternative to paper and pencil. Okay, it's not always the right answer, but sometimes it is the right answer. So what I can do here, each of you has your own copy. If Chantal interacts with her copy, Kelly cannot do anything with it. Okay, and Josh can't mess with anybody else's stuff or anything like that. Everybody has their own individual piece. As a teacher, I can come in and I can click and I can see any work that's been done. And it's fine if you don't have any work done on this one because I haven't given you any time for that. I just wanted you to see how an interactive handout, I'm sorry, an individual handout works. Okay.
Yes, and Marie asked a good question. Can a teacher see the student work after class? Yeah, they can see it during it while it's happening, or they can come back later. So if she goes back to her home screen, or on this page.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. You'll see all the kids' names there, all of us participants. She could come back tomorrow to the same file and they're there. It's kind of important, especially for those of you that are secondary. There's a little toggle that says no guest access. We allow guest access while we're training adults, but you want to turn that off as students because therefore, A, everything is trackable. B, everything that you do, like say today, and you want to start this lesson again tomorrow and have kids continue where they were, it knows who it is. If you come in as a guest, it doesn't. So you just want to make sure that you turn that guest access off, and A, Chani can come back here and see it all the time, or B, Chani can also, on the right-hand side with the gear, be able to shut it down so kids can't come back if she doesn't want them to. So you have lots of options. It just depends on how you want to use it. But yes, you can definitely see the data later.
All right, excellent. Okay, one last thing on this before we move off of it. I also have the option of a teacher handout. This is a really great tool because, you'll notice on my screen, once we started, I can't see to give directions. So I may need to add some clarification, just give directions. Or model something for my students. I can click teacher handout and I get a blank copy. Okay, so that's a beautiful tool that's also part of that. All right, so I believe so we've done our formative assessment. We're good to go. I want to pop out because we only have, a few more minutes, Terry?
Yes.
Yeah,
Sorry.
so I want
I'm so
to,
engrossed in what we're talking about. I wasn't even watching time.
I'm going to pop out of here just at least very quickly. There was a couple things that Terry said I was going to be able to show you. I don't think we're going to have time, but I can at least show you how I got PhET. Okay, so this is my Lumio library, and I'm going to click on New. And notice that PhET is right here. Okay, so it is right there in our new screen. And these are all of the PhET simulations that are aligned. I can also just search it up here if I want to. Okay, I think that one was called Skate Park. Just going to search skate. Okay, energy park. So here is, and I'm going to do the basics, thinking about my middle school world. Okay, I can see it or I can save it to my lesson. So I have the option to kind of preview it beforehand, and then I'm going to save it to my lesson. And this is exactly what I did when I was creating the lesson.
There we
Okay.
go. And can you hit that blue button in the bottom left-hand corner?
Yes.
Because
And
Peter,
go
this
ahead
will
and tell
answer
me
some
if
of your
you-
questions. So
Yep.
that import a resource in that top left-hand corner, most people only look at the top part of that menu where you can import something from your computer. And that's where a lot of people just import their PDFs from. But if you scroll down, you're going to see some important stuff. It's that editable piece. That's where you can use the immersive reader and some of the other things. So if you have a PDF or a PowerPoint, you want to use the one Chani's hovering on right now. If you are a Google district, you want to bring it right in from the Google Drive, docs, sheets, any of that sort of stuff. You can use that one and it'll be editable. It's getting better every time. I will tell you, there are some companies that lock their PDFs. So those won't be editable no matter what. That's nothing we can do because we're not going to break somebody's copyright. But everything, for the most part, that we have found in PhET, in the teacher resources, has been editable. Like I said, just some of the equations look a little funny, so it just depends on whether you want to use it, but that's how you want to bring stuff in.
Absolutely. And this is huge. Again, from my experience in the classroom as a science teacher, when I would find resources, the resources would have most of what I wanted, but not all of what I wanted, or I needed to just tweak it a little bit because I knew the way that I had presented the information to my students. So being able to pull in PDFs that aren't locked and tweak them to be able to be more meaningful for my students was really, really important.
Can you do one
Absolutely.
more thing for me and go out to the Lumio library?
Yes. My Zoom tools are all over the place.
That's
Finish
okay. I
editing.
get it. So a couple things to take note of. The Lumio library, which she's pointing to now, you all have access to, and you can do a search in here. So like if you know there's a specific graphic organizer you want, the specific science graphic organizer you want, like the Freyr model or whatever one she picks out, go ahead, you hit, it'll search and find them all. There's also a category in there that you can just look through all the graphic organizers. They've done a really good job. There's about, I want to say maybe 40 new, not new, in the last year or two, science, STEM kind of graphic organizers that are built in there that you can be able to use. And the good part about this is Chani finds one she likes, she clicks on it, she saves it to her library, then it's always in her library to find, and that's her copy. So let's say you want to change the wording just a little bit, you can change the wording and bring it into any file you want. But those are all built in there to kind of go with some of those STEM simulations. The other thing I want to point out, Chani, while you're there, is go over to the question mark up top right. There you go. Scroll down a little bit on that menu because it's hidden behind. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. There's that request a feature. You guys have the power to request features, search, see what else is in there, vote for them, because the higher vote things get it. There's a lot of stuff in there. Just let us know what you're looking for, because they're willing to do it. All right. Did I miss anything else, Johnny?
I don't think so. Did I miss anything, Terry?
I don't know. That was a whirlwind. I hope you all, with the chat, I think there was lots of conversation, lots of good things. Thank you, Chani, very much for sharing your insights with us today. That was awesome. Paris is going to stick 3 things in the chat right now, 3 things, next steps you can do. 1, share on social, because if you want to, oh, yep, Chani, while I'm talking, Lumio Library, go to graphic organizers. Or actually, Chani, you can open up that file because we have one in there too. So
This
open
one?
up that file. Sorry.
In edit
Very quickly, because they added new graphic organizers to some of you those that don't want to be here. So hit the add button, hit the blue plus button on the bottom left-hand corner, Chani. And then go to graphic organizers. So that brain dump is just like the sticky notes that I was talking about, because somebody was asking about the one, but they've added a bunch of new ones at the top for you also that are instantly there. But that brain dump or sticky note, if you just do a search for sticky notes, you'll be able to find them. Sorry, somebody was reminding me about that particular thing. All right, then let me go back. Paris stuck 3 things in the chat. 1 is the sharing on social. Please share. Please give us feedback, and please try to win that gift card. Just make sure you use either the hashtag or the tag. Second thing, Paris, in that whole thing she's sticking in is the resources. That resource link goes to a tiny URL, which is all the Palooza resources. And if Chani will pull those back up, I'm giving Chani directions. That's okay. There are resources to take away, and I want to specifically point out some of the good ones that you might want to go back and see. And finally, if you are not a Lumio user, there is a promo going on right now, so that might be a great place to go. But Chani, if you will go to those resources.
On my way.
Perfect. All right, this is that resource 1 in step 2 that I was just talking about, and Paris, just stick it in again. Couple things to note. I'm going to start on the right side. I think backwards. Webinars. You obviously found out how to get to this webinar, but people don't realize at the bottom of that webinar pages are all the recorded ones. So if you're looking for something on PhET, there have been some PhET ones that we've done this school year. Chani may even be one of the ones that does them. There is some in there to go back and watch and then get some of the other pieces out of. If you are not already an ambassador for Lumio, we would love to have you. Chani is one of our wonderful ambassadors. That ambassador group has its own little sections, its own little perks. You also get to get sneak peeks of what's coming up. And sometimes you're also part of a group that they'll question about what they're building to make sure it kind of meets your needs. The Lumio Academy has courses just on how to do Lumio, how to build Lumio. It will also have very shortly all of these webinars where you can go back and do them. And if you weren't sitting in them, you can get the certificate for them if you'd like to watch and get it. And finally, if you're new altogether, there is the Learn Lumio. Don't want to know, a couple of you have to go. I realize that because we're getting to be time. Paris is going to stick in the chat if she hasn't already. The survey link. Chani will also have it on the next page, I think. In that survey link, make sure you take the survey. And at the very end is the certificate of attendance for those of you that want it. So that is awesome things. Make sure you've covered it all. I think, I don't know, that last piece is always in. I want to end with thank you very much, Chani, and taking the time to do Lumio Palooza session on skating through science, constructing understanding with Lumio and PhET science simulations. We hope to see you later on future webinars, and we usually try to do PhET. And even if you're science, watch the math ones because you'll learn some of the tricks in the 2 of them. I do find as a math teacher, I learned stuff in the science that I didn't know from the math, and it kind of helps both. I thank you all very much for being here. If you have any more questions, drop them in the chat. So the two math ones literally were math and PhET. If you look at that webinar section, they'll pop out to you because it literally says PhET and math, because they're trying to build more. Somebody put it in here earlier in the chat that PhET really started out as a science, especially college science, and they have just blown up into so many other things. They took science to a new level, and now they're trying to do some math too. Yes, we'll stick all the links one more time in the chat just to make sure you have them. There's the bit.ly right there if you need it to get your survey and generate the chat. And if you have any other questions, just let us know and we will be glad to answer them.
It helps so much to be able to see these concepts in a way where we can interact with them, and it doesn't require the teachers have a bazillion materials. They really, really, really are super helpful things for both math and science.
Awesome. All right, guys, I am going to close this room for everybody. Thank you all very much for being here, and hopefully we will see you next time. And Chani, great job. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining.